To be fair, I was undecided before, but at this very moment, because of this right here, I'm thinking about voting for Derek Dooley for United States Senate.
Whoa.
Peach Pundit, the podcast, is a conversation filled with the personal opinions of the people who are participating. Any view or opinion expressed belongs only to the person who expressed it and not with anyone with whom that person is professionally affiliated.
Thank you for listening to Peach Pundit, the podcast. We know you have political podcast choices, and you could be choosing something else, but you're with us, and that makes me very grateful. I'm Scott Turner. That's Buzz Brockway. We are Peach Pundit, the podcast. Buzz, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. How you doing? How's your bracket doing? Do you do?
I didn't
You're
do
not. You're like a baseball fan, and that's it, right?
I mean, look, it's spring training, man. I watched the World Baseball Classic.
Oh, that was awesome. I mean, what a tournament. It was just a blast. I love it.
Gino Suarez from the Cincinnati Reds, my Cincinnati Reds, gave the game-winning hit.
Ronald Acuna played a big part. I mean, I guess, look, obviously, I wanted the United States of America to win. I want the United States of America to win everything, everywhere, all the time.
Yes.
But if we had to losing to that bunch of Venezuelans who were just, I don't know if you saw the trophy ceremony, they are singing their national anthem. The stadium's, I don't know, maybe 2/3. It's sure. I mean, the Venezuelan crowd in that stadium in Miami, which that's the Marlins Stadium, they're not used to those big crowds, right?
Yeah, no.
They were raucous the whole game. It was awesome. Yeah. And they were all just belting it out, tears streaming down their face. So cool to see.
Yeah, I hated that the United States lost too. But if you listen
first time in my life I ever cheered for Bryce Harper. I just will say, because he hit that 2-run homer in the bottom of the 8th. It was clutch.
He is clutch.
He is clutch.
Can't argue with the fact that he's clutch. But Gino Suarez's post-game interview was all about Jesus.
Yep.
And, I mean, how can you be mad?
Yep.
How can you be mad? Buzz, I'm salty. I'm really salty. And if your name is Brandon Phillips, you're my friend, Brandon.
Yep.
But you send out a 12-piece mail piece, and you include my photo in it, and all it is a giant hit piece. I wasn't decided. I hadn't really. I mean, I was probably leaning Mike Collins until I got this in the mail. It's a 12-page mail piece, a hit piece about Derek Dooley, and it included a screen cap from a podcast. Buzz wasn't here during this podcast. It was one where Cole Musio filled in. And Derek Dooley it was really early in the Dooley campaign. He had done an interview on the Politically Georgia AJC podcast, and he fumbled that.
Yeah.
And we talked about
on the pro-life question specifically, right?
Yeah. He was asked about Governor Kemp's heartbeat bill, and he said, I don't know that I should have an opinion, or I could have an opinion. And Cole and I, both having worked very passionately in favor of the heartbeat bill, felt like that was a slip up. And so we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And during the course of that conversation, we talked about how he still has time to recover from that. But I really, look, if you're my friend and you're going to put my picture in a negative mail piece about another candidate, I'd really appreciate a heads up, a phone call, a conversation, if we're friends. If we're not friends, go ahead and print it. Go ahead. I mean, if we're not friends. But my friend should call me. My friend should pick up the phone. You want to text me all the time about things that we should be writing about in favor of the candidate or candidates that hire you as their general contractor. I'm not impressed. You're supposed to be my friend. Pick up the phone. All right, we're going to move on because we have a lot to talk about today.
Well, can I just add one thing, Scott?
Absolutely.
I mean, you and I, we're in the political world up to our eyeballs. We have favorites from time to time in races, and sometimes we take our time to make our minds up. I don't feel like, I mean, there's a few, very, very few exceptions, but we don't use this platform that we have, that the viewers have given us this platform. We don't use that platform to come on here and stump for our candidates and try to push candidates down people's throats.
Well, it does sometimes happen. It's going to happen later today, but I'm going to tell you when it happens.
Yes. Yeah, so we're not right, and neither of us get paid by anybody, any candidate
Exactly.
or any we don't get paid to take positions. We don't get paid to stump for candidates. We try to shoot straight.
We call balls and strikes.
Yeah.
We offer commentary.
Right.
Derek Dooley made a mistake during an interview. We talked
and that's
about
what
it months ago.
And we've tried to do that in that Senate race too, because
right.
Yeah.
I mean, just a few weeks ago, we talked about other campaigns. We talk about campaigns all the time.
Right.
And again, it's balls and strikes. Sometimes a campaign that we say pitched a ball, the next time they throw a strike. We did that with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, she didn't throw many strikes, but every now and then.
When she did, though,
yes,
we said this was good. Anyway, I don't want to. We got a lot to talk about.
She was kind of like Charlie Sheen's character in Major League before he got his glasses. There was just a bit outside.
Right. Exactly like Charlie Sheen in Wild Thing, as a matter of fact. All right, look. Today we're gonna talk to you about some things that have been happening in the legislature, including Bert Jones and his campaign, and a couple of things that he's done. The Rick Jackson response. Some new video has come to light in the congressional race in 11.
Oh,
where I live.
Okay.
It's not new video. It's actually 6-year-old video of a previous campaign. We also are going to talk to you about whether or not you should use your state house campaigns materials when you're running for a statewide office. That's kind of weird.
Ooh.
The GRA filed a petition this week to have Raffensperger thrown off the ballot, which is the punchline to that you're going to have to stick around for. The Georgia General Assembly is validating Buzz and I voting against HB 170 once again. Court of Appeals in Fulton County and the local election board over there. And then also the legislature has been playing around with the elections. They're playing chicken with sine die and getting an election bill done in time to make sure that we do not have absolute chaos during our midterms. All that and more on this podcast right after this.
Peach Pundit has an anonymous Patreon who would like to invite you to learn more about the Alzheimer's Association. The Alzheimer's Association leads the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. No one should fight Alzheimer's alone. With your help, no one will. Learn more on their website, alz.org.
Golden Retriever Rescue of Atlanta, GRA, is an all-volunteer, tax-deductible charitable organization. They are dedicated to providing veterinary care, comprehensive evaluation, and foster and adoptive homes to golden and Labrador retrievers who are abandoned, mistreated, neglected, or left in shelters throughout Georgia. We encourage you to visit their website GRA.com and help connect people and dogs that need each other in their lives. You truly can make this world a better place by helping find homes of gold for these golden-hearted pups.
Thank you to all of our Patreons for supporting the podcast. If you'd like to join the Patreons, we call them the people who rock. You can head over to patreon.com/peachpundit. Sign up for any one of our tiers starting at just $5. I had to actually turn notifications off in Signal yesterday just so I could get some work done. I think there were something like 170 messages when I came back. It was nuts. The conversation is raucous, funny, intelligent. At the $5 level, you get access to that community. Come be part of it. Patreon.com/peachpundit. Also, just click the like and subscribe button. You know the deal. So, Buzz, you've been watching Legislature this session. Did you see the moment that Bert Jones took to talk about state contracts?
I did not see it live, but as intended, I suppose, it went viral, and I saw that. Yes.
Okay. So I didn't see it live either. I walked into a legislator's office and he said, "Did you see it?" I said, "No." And he stopped everything. We couldn't even start talking. And then about three minutes into it, I looked at him and said, "Can we talk?" And he's like, "Nope, you got to watch the whole thing." He was totally into it. Like, I was not allowed to say anything until Bert was done. And look, what he said during the course of that was that Jackson Healthcare, he called them out by name.
Yeah.
That Jackson Healthcare had been the beneficiary of no bid state contracts and that our agencies were exercising loopholes to give $1 billion more to Rick Jackson's company.
Yeah.
And he was going to put a stop to it by the end of the week. Well, the end of the week has come and gone. We'll see what actually happens. Sine die is 5 legislative days from now.
Right.
We'll see if anything actually gets passed and signed into law. The Jackson campaign had told this story very early that during COVID, yes, in fact, they did have a no bid contract, but it actually cost their company money because they diverted their resources for Jackson Healthcare to Georgia away from the more lucrative contracts that they were getting in other states, and that they would have made more money had they sent the nurses and healthcare professionals that work for Jackson Healthcare to those other states. But this is politics. So Bert had his moment and it did go viral. There are a lot of, viral is in politics is such a, I don't know if it's really accurate. It went viral amongst the politicos in the Gold Dome for sure. But do you think the average person outside of the Gold Dome buzz is going to hear what Bert had to say that day, and is it going to make an impact?
Well, they won't hear what the lieutenant governor had to say, but they can parlay this into an attack that might be effective, honestly. If you can cast it as the lieutenant governor cast it as there was some sort of sweetheart deal that Jackson Healthcare was more or less given, and it contrary to Georgia law, by the way, if that were the case. You cannot have no bid contracts to do for regular business with the state of Georgia, except in emergencies, as you described. So I don't know, they got to spell it out with some specificity here, but I think they can turn that into an effective attack, possibly. Well, because look, I don't know the facts of the case. I don't know, what sort of contracts Jackson Healthcare and its affiliated entities have with the state of Georgia. They're in the healthcare business. The state of Georgia spends a heck of a lot of money in various aspects of healthcare. So,
I think one of the things that happened earlier, because Jason Ridley had a bill that said if you have a state contract, you can't run for statewide office. And the Jackson campaign...
that's going to wipe out a heck of a lot of people. Because,
Right.
I mean, look, my former state senator, Renee Unterman, she did not own the business, but she was in leadership in a business that was one of the main distributors of Medicaid in the state of Georgia. And that wasn't a crime. It was disclosed.
Right.
And so on and so forth. So there are,
Right.
You have to, these are part-time legislators. They have to make a living somehow.
Right.
And some of them are in businesses that the state of Georgia is involved in as well.
The Jackson campaign had a response almost immediately where Rick Jackson said, okay, we'll just cancel the state contract. It's no big deal.
So that kind of, right. So that implies that that's not the key part of his business, right? He wouldn't say, I'm going to destroy my business,
right,
and fire all my employees,
right?
If so that
even
were
if
the
this
main
were
part of
pass,
his business, right?
Even if this were to pass and get signed into law, Rick Jackson's already said, take it. We're making money other places.
And he's previously said that he would take steps to remove himself, if he were to become governor, remove himself from the operations of all his businesses.
Yeah. So I went and saw Rick Jackson speak. I tried to get to see all the candidates, statewide candidates, speak in person at least one time during the course of the primary season. So I took that opportunity last Saturday and I went and saw Rick Jackson speak in Smyrna. And one of the things that he said during his stump speech part of the presentation was, years and years ago, he said if he reaches this point of income and he's made this much money, he would give away the rest. And he said since that day, he has been giving away the rest. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter to him. You're not going to hurt this guy because he's already made all of his money that he wants to make in life.
Right.
As what happens with billionaires, a lot of billionaires get philanthropic and they say, I'm going to give away the rest. The way he phrased it was, I committed to giving the rest of my earnings the rest of my life to God once I reach that point, and God has made a lot of money since that day.
Yep. This isn't a religious podcast, but there's a spiritual principle there. Okay.
Yeah,
That's all I'll say.
Yes. Yeah. And we're not prosperity gospel people here either. That's, in my opinion, false doctrine. Don't fall for anything like that
I agree.
ever.
I agree.
But Bert this week also took the step to make a video where he had a check in his hand and he was waving at the cameras and he's saying, this is the money that Rick Jackson gave me and I'm sending back. I don't want your Planned Parenthood money. I'm sending it back. Well, that's all well and good. What was your first reaction when you saw that, Buzz?
Two things. If you knew it was Planned Parenthood money, why'd you take it in the first place?
Right. This check was written to you in September of last year.
Yeah.
It is now March.
Second of all, right. He's been in the
year.
race for 6 weeks, 7 weeks now.
Beginning of February, yeah.
Just now getting around to send it back. That was Boston Rockaway thought those thoughts, but you know.
I share that reaction. Like, why did it take you so long? If you thought it was Planned Parenthood money, look, I think it makes great fodder for the people who are already supporting you. They can be yeah, that's our guy.
Right. And we always have to remember, Scott, you and I are political junkies.
Right.
These are the thoughts that political junkies have. The average public had never heard of Rick Jackson, and a lot of them had never heard of Burt Jones before this. Now they're all over everybody's airwaves, and so they start hearing these things. They're just now forming their opinion. So,
correct.
You know, we can question those things, but what does the average Joe and Jane out there think? They think, oh my goodness, Rick Jackson. They might think, oh my goodness, Rick Jackson is involved in Planned Parenthood somehow. I can't vote for him.
Right.
And the Jackson campaign, of course, is messaging against that and saying Burt Jones is doing all sorts of nefarious things too.
So Buzz is the voice of the common man. I'll be the voice of the political class here.
Yeah.
And I'll say that within the Peach Pundit community, the reaction was as follows. That's great, Bert. Now do speed cameras. That was literally things that we heard from multiple members of the Peach Pundit community.
Yes.
Both inside the hallways of the Gold Dome and in the Signal chat. That's great. Now do speed cameras. The Rick Jackson campaign continues to respond every time Bert tries something. He's like, you know, Bert's dodging and weaving and he's jabbing and he's jabbing. And there's a response every time.
Yeah.
And this week, Rick Jackson called in Sesame Street. In ostrich skin boots, no less, there was a man dressed as Bert from Bert and Ernie, along with Ernie. They debuted a new website. We're not going to go into that. But they stood in front of the steps of the Capitol on Friday telling people to go visit the website.
I love that Jeff Almy sent out a photo of the two characters.
Jeff Almy of the Associated Press.
Yes, one of the Capitol reporters. Behind was this gentleman, unrelated to any of this. I just thought it was rather ironic. He's standing there with a sign kind of draped around his neck that says peace.
Yeah,
the contrast is apparent.
There's a minister of some sort. I haven't really engaged him in a ton of conversation, but he's usually in the morning hours standing on those steps between the LOB and the Capitol, greeting legislators with some sort of sign.
Yeah.
And the sign that day was peace. You
can't
make this stuff up.
A good message to try to spread at the Capitol.
Right. So the House of Representatives continues, in my estimation, this is Scott Turner's opinion, to be the adult in the room when it's coming to election policy, election law. They took a bill that passed on sine die last year out of the Senate, SB 214, authored by Max Burns. They gutted it, and then they put in a replacement for the current ballot marking device election machines with a hand-marked paper ballot that would be printed ballot on demand in the voting precincts. So you wouldn't have to change any early voting precinct behavior that you have today. You could go to any of the ones that you have in your county. So it wouldn't change that. It would maintain the ease to vote. But when you walked in, you give your ID, they'd make sure that you are who you are, and then print the appropriate ballot for you. And then you would hand mark it and drop it into an optical scanner. And then that would be tabulated. And there would be audits on the back end to make sure. There'd be actually two styles of audits under the bill. One would be the risk limit audit that we've talked about at length here, which is partial hand count, and also an optical character recognition software audit that would look at the human readable things, the ballots, and determine what the count would be based upon the human readable text. Now, that OCR audit doesn't have any type of real impact on the official tabulation. What was interesting is that the actual paper ballot is the official tally of or record of the voter's intent. So reading the human readable mark there where you're bubbling in. Also, if you dropped in a ballot that was mismarked, say you double voted, it would reject it and give the voter the opportunity to fix it before they cast their ballot. The Georgia Association of Voter Registration Election Officials, also known as GRA, has pointed out some issues that they'd like to see massaged, but they are in support of the bill primarily because it gives a very responsible timeline for them to implement this. Now, I'll remind you, we talked about this before. If we went forward with what we have today, which is SB 189, passed into law a couple years ago, it removes the QR code from tabulation. Doesn't say it can't be on the ballot, it just says you can't use it to tabulate the official result. It goes into effect on July 1st. If it stays the status quo, there will be absolute chaos come midterms because the law still says we use ballot marking devices. That's what the law says.
Yep.
So everybody would still today, if nothing happens, there's no other legislation that passes between now and day 40. On July 1st, we will be expected to vote on ballot marking devices. We will have our ballots printed. We will go drop them into the scanner, at which time 20 plus races when the polls close would have to be hand counted in the precincts. That means in a place like DeKalb, where there are over 400 different ballot styles, the polling places would have to sort. That could take 24, 48 hours just to do that. Once they've sorted all those ballots, they would have to begin counting them one race at a time and then start over second race at a time.
Gosh.
It would take weeks. We would likely miss.
This year will be a particularly long ballot, right?
Yes. Yeah. Lots of races, local races, county
sheriff,
races, sheriffs,
state house,
county commission,
all that stuff.
Local election boards, not election board. Well, the one county has election boards.
Some counties, yeah.
School boards, a couple city council races will be on the ballot this year. Depending on where you live, it's going to be special
in
elections.
The primaries,
right? Yep.
Because
so if we do nothing, it's going to be absolute chaos. If we do nothing, whoever gets elected under this system that is in place today will come into office with a cloud of illegitimacy over their head, period. It won't matter who wins because it will be litigated and the losing side's going to question the result saying they didn't meet the certification deadline. This wasn't done lawfully, blah, 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 blah. I'm just telling you what will happen. And I've been prescient about this in the past. I'm just telling you what's going to happen if it stays the same. Election industrial complex. The election integrity industrial complex is choking on SB 214 as passed out of the House committee because they are saying they're running away from the QR code issue, and they're not. Okay, to put this in perspective, I actually testified in front of the bill in front of the committee, and this is what I said: nobody wants this worse than me. It's the only Republican that voted against bringing Dominion voting machines to Georgia the first time. I've been working on this for a decade. Nobody wants this worse than me, and I'm telling you, it cannot be done by July 1st. It can't.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Our runoffs are not going to be over until June.
Yeah.
And you're going to expect them to have something in place by July 1st with no procurement window and no other options.
Right. And we've talked about this last week, Scott.
Yes.
People don't understand. It's sort of like, I guess, what I call the light switch phenomenon. You walk into a room, you flip the light switch on, you expect it to work. You don't understand how it works. You don't really care. It's not your job to understand how it works. There's a lot that goes into that, right? The same thing with elections. When you walk into the polling place, there is months and months and months and years of work that took place to be ready for you to walk in there and under the ballot marking devices, tap the screen under Scott's dream scenario, which looks like it's about to happen. You pull out the approved marker and mark your ballot, right?
Right.
Months and months and months of work goes into that every election.
Sure.
You cannot, people think, well, that's July, that's months and months away. What is wrong? You don't understand all the work that goes into this.
Plus buying the
and I don't mean
necessary.
that insulting, but it's just not, it's
Right.
not the average person's job to understand that, but don't go down to the Capitol and demand your legislators do stuff that's not possible.
Right. It's not reasonable. And also, it's not a retreat from removing the QR code from tabulating the ballots. It's not. I know that there are a lot of people trying to say that they are running away from SB 189. They're not. They still want to implement it. They just don't want to do it this year because it's not possible. They want to give the election officials the time, the money, and the equipment that they need to train and get this done the right way, which means the start date is January of 28, which when you put this in perspective, I've been working on this for 10 years. I can wait until 28. And I know there are people who will say the current machines have vulnerabilities. You had your day in court. The judges didn't agree with you. The case was made and the system was left in place with all the vulnerabilities. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't be vigilant and we shouldn't pay attention to those vulnerabilities and we should make sure that nobody's exploiting them. We need to be aware.
Again, folks don't understand all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes to protect, to counteract all those vulnerabilities that exist and all the other thousands of different ways that somebody might possibly steal a vote. There are all kinds of laws and procedures and policies in place to stop that stuff, right?
Right. So the House has passed this out of committee. It's currently in rules. The Senate, late on Thursday, said, well, we're going to try again with a version of Greg Dolezal's bill that failed on crossover day. There were two changes to that. There was a $1,000 fine per instance for faulty election registration information.
Refuse a local official refusing to remove somebody off the ballot.
So he lowered that to $1,000 per instance.
Off the voter rolls, I should say. Right.
And the other change was limiting the number of hand counts and moving the hand counts after certification of the results. Look, this bill I don't think has the votes in the Senate, but they called a 7 p.m. hearing on Thursday evening. And I was there in the committee room when they said, we were going to hear it, but we've decided to push that. So I got home at like 8:30 on Thursday night because I was
contributing to your saltiness, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of reasons to be salty. It's that time of year. All this to say that when the House passes this bill, I hope all the Republicans and the Democrats come together and realize this is the most mature solution that we have on the table. When I say mature, adult behavior, forward-looking, understanding how to responsibly govern bill that we have. And I'm deeming it, in Scott Turner's estimation, the most important bill outside of the budget that must pass this year. Otherwise, there's going to be absolute chaos in November when we have the midterms. And a lot of this was done as an effort to embarrass or to put Brad Raffensperger into a position where he would have to answer for a lot of the stuff. Well, if you're looking at the polls right now, I don't know why anybody's worried about embarrassing Brad Raffensperger.
Well,
I love Brad. I consider him a friend. I don't think he's going to be on the ballot in November.
That's not a reason. Even if you're leading in the polls, embarrassing him is not the way to govern.
Right.
Just to be blunt about it.
Right.
So Scott, I mean, look, everybody knows where I stand on this. I like the ballot marking devices.
Sure.
I think many of the things that get lobbed their way are just not true and nonsense. But fair enough. Look, as you have pointed out, most of America, well over
71% of Americans cast their ballot on a hand-marked paper ballot and an optical scanner.
I'm glad that they are pushing out the implementation because, for the reasons you pointed out, you need time. You need time to do this. My concern, which I've said to you, I would like to see specificity in defining, and maybe this, the bill is not done yet, so maybe this can happen. So anybody listening, please put this in there. we need to spell out what exactly a proper mark is. That will save us a heck of a lot of headaches and a lot of lawsuits to if we would take the time to specify that. And I think we can. You can probably just copy over the code that describes absentee ballots, because those are hand-marked paper ballots, right?
Yeah.
So there's probably a simple thing to do, just to include it in there, so there's no confusion and there's absolute clarity.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, Scott, what has warmed me to this bill is the reaction of the election integrity industrial complex, their freak out, the press conferences, the panicked videos, maybe this bill isn't as nutty as I worried it would be.
Well, when we come back from our break, we're going to talk about the state election board's absolute meltdown they had as a result of the bill clearing committee.
There you go.
Americans for Prosperity Georgia is out in communities across the state celebrating the policy wins of the last several years and casting a vision for what the future holds. Visit peachstateplaybook.org to learn more about the game plan for freedom and prosperity, because to win, you have to call the right plays. Thank you again to our friends at Americans for Prosperity for being a partner-level Patreon. To join our Patreons, head on over to patreon.com/peachpundit. Sign up for one of those tiers, and while you're thinking about it, click the like and subscribe buttons. So, the state election board, I swear, look, I want to go. I think if I'm in town on their next meeting in April, I might just go participate in the public comment period, and where I tell them, y'all need a civics lesson.
Consider yourself warned, state board.
I really seriously, you need a civics lesson, because a couple of members of the board, one of them brought a resolution saying, we shouldn't do SB 214, which is within their right if they're just saying don't do it. If the resolution would have said something like we're going to ignore it, it becomes law, you don't have the authority to do that. And I'll just put you on notice too. I sued you once and won. I'll sue you again. And this time I'll come ask for legal fees. And I might actually ask you personally to have to pay those, because you know better at this point. You just got your butt spanked in a Supreme Court ruling, a unanimous Supreme Court ruling, saying you can't be lawmakers if you try to ignore the law. I'm coming for your money, because it was not cheap. It cost me a lot of money to fight for separation of powers, and I will defend that with everything that I have, professionally and personally. So when you start saying things like we shouldn't follow the law, or if that thought should cross your mind, you're on notice. Secondly, Janelle King, who used to blog here at Peach Pundit until she became a member of the state election board, said that the legislature should just follow the law. SB 189 is the law. Why are they even doing this? They should just follow the law. Okay. I don't know how to put this. It's your job to follow the law. It's your job to enforce the law. You're part of the executive branch. The lawmaking branch, the legislators, get to change the law during a legislative session if they so choose. They make the law. So if they want to change SB 189, guess what? They can, and they will, and they have the power and authority constitutionally to do so, whereas you do not. So for you to say, just follow the law, is probably one of the dumbest things you could possibly say. You sound like Fani Willis. When Fani Willis was lecturing the senators, you guys don't know the law. Duh, they write the law. They make the law. The legislature does this 40 days a year for over the 3 full months. They do this. They know how to do the job that they're doing. The fact that you don't understand it is gobsmacking to me. I don't get how somebody can make comments like this from a board that has this much importance and this much attention at it at this point.
It's so much like so many people in MAGA. It's government by vibes. I feel like this should happen, therefore that's what should happen. That's not the real world, and that's not how it works.
Separation of powers is my jam.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
You're part of the executive branch. Go enforce the law as written. That's your job. You're not a lawmaker. And frankly, I have told some of them this privately. You're going to be under a great deal of pressure to behave as if you have lawmaking authority, and you do not.
Well, put your name on the ballot and run. I know Janelle's husband has, but other members of that board who love to
and can I just say something about that
from
too?
put your name on the ballot and run.
You talk about a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Your husband's on the ballot. Can you guarantee he's not getting insider information? Because I tell you, when Janelle King got appointed, she called me and said, I'm going to be able to give Peach Pundit insider access. So I know that's on my mind. Like, is the Kelvin King for whatever off? I'm not going to mention the office he's running for. He's running for office. Is he getting insider feedback that you offered to Peach Pundit? Come on. Just, if you had any integrity at all, you'd step down. Let your husband go run. Maybe he wins, maybe he doesn't, but it doesn't put that race under any type of cloud of insecurity, cloud of doubt, cloud of illegitimacy. Go let your husband run on his own merits. Let the people decide how this is going to turn out, Pete.
Can't have that. Can't have that.
I mean, you go and question the integrity of the legislature. You blast them all the time. Right back at you. Look in the mirror. Oh, that's going to be your election update.
By the way, I'm going to take a pause here for a minute. Nice. Scott is wearing a Gwinnett Stripers T-shirt. That's the minor
somebody
league.
told me it was Gwinnett Strippers. My bad.
No,
okay.
we don't allow those things in our county. We got other things. We don't allow that.
It's not Magic City Night. At Cool
there
Ray
was
Field.
No Magic City Night at the at Cool Ray Fields.
No, look, I love baseball, and this is one of the cooler logos in all of minor league baseball.
Yes.
I mean, it's got a little baseball lure on a hook where the white bass, the striper, is those type of
bass.
fish.
Yep,
is in a lot of Georgia lakes. They're in Alatoona, but obviously in Lake Lanier as well, and with the Georgia flag. I just think it's one of the best. Anyway, I love baseball. I love minor league baseball. Rocket City Trash Pandas.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, you can't. The Montgomery Biscuits. It does Savannah Bananas. I love it all.
And what Rome? Yeah, Rome changed their name to the Rome Emperor Penguins, which is fantastic. Tying in the Roman Empire with penguins, and I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
No, you really can't. Where do I want to go next? Buzz and I continue to be validated. HB 1199 was signed into law yesterday. It is a tax relief package that includes a 60-day gasoline tax suspension, which means that, what is it, roughly 30 cents a gallon?
33, something like that, around 33, I think I saw. Yeah.
Will not be collected from you at the pump.
Offering 60 days.
For 60 days, because after the Iranian war?
Can't call it a war.
Conflict?
In Israel, they call it a war, but
we're
in
not
the
allowed
United
to call
States,
it war.
We can't call it a war because Congress did not formally declare it a war.
Right. Military action
has
caused gas prices to skyrocket just after the president was really proud of the $2.50 gallon of gas that he had achieved during the State of the Union in February. My racetrack down the street where I usually purchase gas is at $3.90 a gallon right now. So hopefully this being signed into law, when I drive by there later, it'll be somewhere in the 360s. Hopefully.
Yeah. We'll see. I was just going to look up the price of oil at the moment is
it's so volatile. It keeps going up and down.
$98.81 a barrel.
Which is pretty high.
Yes.
So that's why you see pain at the pump. But the legislature, the Republicans in the legislature and Governor Kemp had decided 60 days of reprieve. But it just goes back to, you and I, we both voted against having this massive tax increase on gasoline in the first place. And they said, we can't live without it. We can't live without it. Well, it's been suspended so many times I've lost count. And every time it gets suspended, I'm like, another mark for that being the right vote.
It's a good thing we have all that cash piled up that the governor can tap into that so that DOT gets their money.
Right. And so if the bill had been revenue neutral at the time, I would have voted for it. Mm-hmm. There were 4 amendments back then that would have made it revenue neutral. I voted in favor of all those amendments, thinking that if the amendments get passed on the floor that would make it revenue neutral, I could vote for the bill. All 4 of those amendments failed. So I voted no.
I'll go further than this, and this may anger some people, but this is where I was at the time. I talked a lot to my constituents, polled them pretty extensively, had many conversations. My constituents, At the time, I was right adjacent to my district, the section of I-5, which is at that time and probably still is today, the most congested stretch of freeway on planet Earth. Okay.
I believe you. I believe you.
And so my constituents are like, look, if you can tell us that this will improve my daily commute, meaning we're going to spend this money to expand capacity, so on and so forth, improve traffic flow around the metro area, we're willing to pay more money for that. And the bill was touted as, no, this is just to fix roads and bridges.
Yep.
That's all this is for.
Not expansion
just
or
to fix roads and bridges, but
just repair, maintenance.
Okay. We dug up that dead horse. Now we can let it lie again, I guess.
Yeah. We'll try to cover it back up. The earlier Buzz said that we don't shill for campaigns. So in transparency,
I said rarely.
Right. So in transparency, I am supporting Rob Ackerson for Congress in District 11, which is where I live. And I have a lot of good reasons for supporting Rob Ackerson, but just keep that in mind as I tell you this next part. John Cowan, who is also running against Rob to seek the nomination to become the congressman from the 11th district, previously ran in District 14 against Marjorie Taylor Greene in 2020. And an old video, a campaign video from John Cowan's own YouTube channel, has found its way back to the surface.
Yeah.
So we'll bury one dead horse and dig up another, I suppose.
Relive the 14th district runoff from years ago.
In that video from 2020, it was bashing Marjorie Taylor Greene for being a carpetbagger, for not living in the 14th Congressional District, for abandoning her own district, which was the 6th Congressional District, to go run in the 14th. And it features John Cowan saying, if I lose this election, you won't see me running somewhere else.
Ouch.
I'm going to fight for this district, the 14th district, because this, the 14th district, is the district I love. John, go home. You had a chance in a special election this year. There's a primary this year for the district you love. You don't live in my district. John, go home. Go home. Follow John's own words, John, and fight for your own people. The 14th Congressional District does not need 2 congressmen. The 14th Congressional District deserves and needs their congressman. And the 11th Congressional District deserves and needs their own congressman, and you don't live here. And I heard through the grapevine that you're telling people that you got redistricted out, that you used to live in the 11th and you don't anymore. That was 12 years ago. You haven't lived in a district for over a decade. Stop telling people that you got redistricted out. You did not. And if it was so important for you to live in the 11th district, you should have never run in the 14th, telling them, those people, that that was the district you loved. There. I'm not shilling. I'm a concerned voter here that lives here, that has a vested interest here, and I can do something in this election that John Cowan can't. I can vote in it. That's it. Do you have anything you want to add?
I don't live in either of those districts. So,
then we'll move on.
But I love Rob.
Yeah.
If I lived there, I'd vote for him.
From time to time, we've talked about the school superintendent race here, the statewide race here in Georgia, because I don't think you or I are very big fans of the incumbent Richard Woods. I don't think Richard Woods has a lot of fans in the legislature either. Is that fair?
That's fair.
So one of the candidates in that race is a very nice lady. I've talked to her at length on several occasions. I did not get to serve with her. She came in after I left. Her name is Misha Maynor. She represented the 56th State House District. Which is a city of Atlanta district. She also switched parties from becoming a Democrat over to Republican because of her support for school choice. And she basically got bullied out of the Democratic Party over that vote.
Yeah.
So we heard this week, a Peach Pundit listener sent us photos of her campaign booth at the Greene County Republican Party Forum event, where Misha Maynor looked like she was still running for State House. Did you see these photos?
Yes.
Is that odd? What does it say that the former state rep who's now running statewide for a different office doesn't have campaign materials that say or explain what office she's running for, but are pitching in Greene County her old State House race?
She's raised no money. That's what it says. But I mean, at least, Misha, I love her, man. I love you. At least get some stickers or some Sharpies. Stickers and Sharpies will fix this. I understand you got some materials left over.
It does say she hasn't raised money, but also it's like a weird thing. Like you're trying to get people to vote for you for state superintendent, and you're not even telling them you're running for that.
Listen, she, as folks saw when she was in the legislature, she is not afraid to. She's not afraid to buck her party. That's the same. That hasn't changed. She was not afraid to buck the Republican Party either, because she's not a conservative. No disrespect meant, but she's not a conservative. When she was in the legislature, she called herself an independent progressive. That's what she called herself. That's what she's described herself as in a interview with George Cheedy. That's who she is, and that's fine. But what she does have that I find appealing, a lot of people, she's got passion. She fought like heck in her mind for what she thought was the best thing for her constituents, and that ran slap up against the Democratic Party, especially on the issue of school choice. Why that is not translated into a coherent campaign of the passion, dripping passion, almost righteous indignation about kids in this state, not just in her district, but in every district in the state who aren't getting the education they need. She would be the perfect vehicle to deliver that kind of message because she lived it. She saw her own kids experienced it, and her constituents experienced that. But that is not, bless her heart, that's not what has happened in her race for superintendent. Another candidate is picked up that mantle, thank the Lord, and is fighting for that, and bless him. But yeah, me and several of my friends in kind of the school choice movement are kind of puzzled that this is the kind of campaign she's running. It's bizarre.
So moving on, the Georgia Republican Assembly, that lovable group of goofballs, rejects, and
this is the comedy segment of the Peach Pundit podcast. Here's when we talk about whatever the GRA is up to now.
I guess it's the clown show. Have filed a petition. I guess they're I don't know if it was actually the GRA.
Two members of the GRA,
members, but the GRA has been out there saying 2 voters have come forward, 2
brave
convention
souls,
brave Americans, proud of them for coming forward to file a petition with Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger outlining that the Georgia Republican Party held a convention last year and excluded Brad Raffensperger from qualifying to be on the ballot as a Republican ever again. They filed that petition with, let me check my notes here. Says here, Brad Raffensperger.
And then they're going to complain with whatever ruling Brad Raffensperger rules upon himself.
Right. Alex Johnson or whoever the GRA Facebook account said, this is only step 1.
Yes.
This is only step 1.
Of course.
And I responded with the Peach Pundit account to that comment saying anything to avoid accountability for the alleged involvement in the Ponzi scheme, I suppose. Jason Shepard's done yeoman's work over on the blog side. There are several articles about this, including one about how Robert's Rules of Order would not allow the convention to do what they did, and that if they went into court, it would get tossed out. And Jason's latest piece about it, he explains how the petition, basically makes what Jason has been saying all along, makes that case that they didn't actually follow Robert's Rules, which is what governs the convention at their gatherings. And they don't, if they go into court, they're more than likely going to get laughed out again. But I guess anything to do 2 things. One is to keep this narrative that Brad Raffensperger isn't a Republican alive, and also to divert attention, to create a shiny object so that people would look at that instead of the fact that multiple people who are associated with the goofball rejects and a-holes have now been fined $500,000 apiece because of their involvement with the Ponzi scheme. Look, bring it home for us, Buzz. Let's bring it home.
Give it a rest. I mean, give it a rest. I mean, you're not going to win. I'll just say it this way. We talked about a few weeks ago, Alex Johnson's out there saying, well, we must enforce the platform. I reread the platform of the Georgia Republican Party and the National Republican Party. I don't think that Brad Raffensperger deviates from the Republican Party. I think he's a solid Republican because he supports probably 100% everything in that platform, in both platforms. That's more than you can say for members of the GRA because they're out there doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, as we record this, they're holding their nominating convention or endorsement convention. For
any candidate's going to show up? I mean, make a pitch
I talked to one earlier. And they were like, "Hey, should I go to this?" And I told them no.
Yeah, look, I went
and he's going to go anyway.
In 2018, I went. They weren't as crazy as they are now. They're not, evading, which we can talk about here in a second, what a move that the Attorney General did. But I went knowing that my chances were slim and none. But as a phrase that our friend Sam Teasley coined that I love very much, I stood up and I preached the gospel of buzz, which is the Republican Party should be broad and expansive and should be talking about growth and opportunity, and that would attract as many people to our party as we possibly can with that kind of a platform.
Right.
I got blank. I actually finished second, oddly enough. Josh McCoon may never forgive me for this, but I probably blocked him from getting their endorsement at that time in 2018. But c'est la vie. I did you a favor, Josh. I did you a favor by not being their endorsed candidate in that, in hindsight, right?
It made it easier for you to walk away from them, as you did last year when you resigned your membership, finally, in that organization. Our last topic for the podcast.
Scott, we need to mention, while we're on the topic of the GRA,
sure,
the Attorney General of Georgia,
Chris Carr,
issued a press release earlier this week. There is going to be a hearing with the Office of State Administrative Hearings coming up April 22nd, where the Attorney General's office is going to make their case that the GRA and the GRA PAC, I'm going to quote just briefly from the press release, the GRA and GRA PAC failed to properly register with the commission as an independent committee. They failed to file 15 campaign contribution disclosure reports and failed to disclose a significant amount of campaign contributions and expenditures. Now, that might not be in the Republican Party platform, but it's kind of implied that as Republicans, we believe we should follow the law.
Amen.
And so if the, depending on how the judge in this, the OSAH judge rules, this may be referred over to some and criminal penalties might be enforced. So there you go.
Godspeed to you.
So that's kind of a dual GRA/Frostopus update, because at least in the minds of the Attorney General of the state of Georgia and his office, they're up to their eyeballs in the Frostopus sham.
The Fulton County Commission last year, I wrote a piece on this last year when the Fulton County Commission refused to seat GOP nominated members of the local election board in Fulton County, saying that Julie Adams and Jason Frazier were election deniers and therefore unqualified to sit on the local election board. The state party sued the county, and the county was ruled in contempt for not seating them. The Court of Appeals, the state level, have overturned the lower court's decision, saying that Fulton does not have to seat those two individuals. And I think that's unfortunate for one reason, but I'm going to tell you why I think this is going to be something that the legislature should really keep their eye on, because I've been ringing the warning bell on this for quite some time now.
Yeah.
It's my position, the way the law is written, that the county should be following the law. And if they wanted to, they could sue, but they should be seating these folks because that's the way the law is written. And they should be following the law. And I've said that all along. I did not think it was wise for the Fulton County Commission to refuse to seat them. But I also have this knowledge that there's this court case out there that is case law. It's called DeLay v. Sutton.
Mm-hmm.
The punchline of the case, the bottom line of the case is you cannot have people on these types of boards appointed or limit elected officials' abilities to appoint from a list made up of by people who are not elected.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, the party is not elected.
Right.
And they are giving the county a list of people that they should be allowed to pull names off of.
Right.
And according to case law, DeLay v. Sutton, you cannot do that.
Yep.
The elected officials must be able to exercise their own discretion in determining who gets to sit on the board.
Right.
And I've been saying this for quite some time now, that these types of legislative setups are not going to pass constitutional muster. I've been saying this.
Mm-hmm.
Again, some people think, oh, he's just in league with the Democrats or he's just melodramatic. I'm waving my hands on the side of the road and I'm trying to get your attention as you're speeding by because the bridge is out 300 feet behind me. Stop. Let's get this taken care of now. Let's not let the courts figure this out.
Right.
The legislature should be paying attention to this.
Yeah.
Because our current state election board is configured very much the same way, where non-elected people are appointing members to that board. If this is challenged outside of a legislative session, it could throw our election system into chaos because the legislature has given so much oversight authority, not to the Secretary of State who's elected, but to this unelected board.
Mm-hmm.
And the members of that board are not being appointed by elected officials. There are two members, one from each party, that are appointed who are not being appointed by somebody who's elected. There's no way for the public to hold those organizations accountable for those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Our current structure is unconstitutional. And I've been saying this. And the election industrial complex freaks out when I say it because they're like, oh, he's wrong. This is another arrow in my quiver of being right.
Yeah.
So the legislature should be paying attention to this case. I know they got a lot going on. There are only 5 legislative days left, and they've got a lot going on. But I told them during the Blue Ribbon Committee, we had a bill last year. We had House sponsors lined up to introduce that bill. When I took it over to the Senate prior to introducing it in the House, the Senate told us, we're not doing that. And I wasn't going to put my House members into a position where they would be vulnerable because the bill wouldn't move because there was no cooperation. Because again, the House are the adults in the room right now when it comes to elections. Somebody said this to me, Buzz. I'm going to get your reaction to this. Somebody said to me this. The House of Representatives have a bunch of elected officials who are concerned with making law in office right now, and the Senate has a bunch of candidates over there.
Yeah, there's some truth to that. There are a large number of candidates in the Senate.
Yes.
Well, look, you can introduce. There are all sorts of reasons why bills are introduced, right? And why people vote one way or the other. Elected officials, legislators vote one way or the other. And when you're running for statewide office, that puts all the stuff you do under even greater scrutiny. And even in your own mind, you think, how's this going to help me or hurt me on the campaign trail? And a whole lot of that happening.
So if this ends up going in front of the Supreme Court, I'm sure the local party will want to appeal. Mm-hmm. They're likely to lose. It doesn't mean that it's right or fair that the Republicans don't have people who represent them on the board. I think there should be Republicans on the Fulton County Election Board. I think it would be fair if there were. I mean, here in Cherokee, we have 2 Democrats, and we're still a 68% Republican county.
Yeah.
And we still have 2 Democrats on our local election board.
Mm-hmm.
Fulton County should be doing the same thing as Cherokee, just out of fairness. Mm-hmm. They absolutely should see. And I know you may not agree. I don't agree with everything Jason Frazier and Julie Adams says either.
Right.
But they deserve the party, Republicans, not necessarily the party, but Republicans do deserve to have somebody there. So if you're not going to appoint them, find a Republican you can and put them on there. Because this is not tenable.
Now,
It's
Scott,
not
let me ask you
fair.
this just for some clarity, because when I was chairman of the Republican Party in Gwinnett County, it wasn't, at least in Gwinnett, and I know different counties do it different ways. I was not, as chairman of the Republican Party, making an appointment to the board. I was submitting a name to the county commission.
Right.
And the county commission just made that final decision. That's kind of what's happening in Fulton, right?
Yeah. Even that, you can't limit it to just the names on the list.
Right.
Because there's actually another case.
The board of commissioners in Gwinnett County could have said, we don't like that name, we're appointing this other person.
Right.
And the same is true, like I am one of Speaker Burns' appointees to the State Charter School Commission. He sent a letter to the State Board of Education saying, here's some names that I would like you to put on the board. And it was kind of a wink and a nod, put Buzz on there.
Right.
And now the State Board of Education could have said no. But it doesn't happen. Rarely it happens. And what you're seeing in Fulton County is a rare situation. And you're right. So it would have been better if the Board of Commissioners, Rob Pitts should have called up the chairman and said, hey, come on, man, work with me here. Give me some more palatable names that would make your folks happy, and that we can get through the votes on this commission, and let's be done with this. Let's quit fighting about it.
I don't know that the party would have done anything
Probably not.
But if that had happened, in Cherokee County, it used to be that each party got to appoint 2 members, and then the county commission did their own, and that changed a couple of years ago because of this DeLay v. Sutton case. They were afraid that if it got challenged, if the Democrats sued, they would lose the ability to have any input at all. So now what happens is the party gives them a list of people, and it clearly states in our local legislation that the commission, the county commission, has discretion. They can pick from that list or not. Yeah, they're free to pick whoever they want. Yep. But they have chosen to work with the parties, and they do put people on there that the
and
parties,
I suspect
each of the parties
that happens
nominate.
In many, many counties in the state of Georgia. That's what goes on. I have heard there are some, because in reality, there's a judge, magistrate court, is that right? Who in many small counties, especially, and it's kind of, if you don't have an elections office, then the magistrate judge, I might have the wrong judge, but there's a judge that oversees elections in the county, and that person makes appointments to an elections board in certain counties in the state of Georgia. So there's all kind of different ways. But Scott, I agree with you 110%. Legislature needs to provide some clarity on these things to make sure we don't have a situation, because you're right. And any time, for any reason, probably for a partisan reason, trying to gain partisan advantage, somebody's going to file a lawsuit someplace in one of Georgia's 159 counties, and the judge is going to have to look at the law and say, you're right, bam, and suddenly we've got all kinds of bizarre, there's nobody there to sign the little paper that says this election is qualified. Then what do you do?
Go to court.
Yes.
More fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
So don't fix problems before they arise. That's a good legislative principle.
Amen and amen. That's going to wrap us on the podcast. Unless you had something else, you got to pick for who's your winner in the bracket.
Duke.
March Madness. Duke. Didn't Duke lose?
No.
Good. Okay. They almost lost or something. I haven't watched a single minute of college basketball.
Are you kidding me? Oh, sorry. So, all right. So look, I'll say one thing. March Madness, that especially the first weekend, it's I think one of the greatest sporting events ever. There's chaos. There's people you never heard of. Georgia got taken down by St. Louis. Everybody's like, how in the world could this happen? A young man known as kind of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because he's white, or
is this the guy that plays for Florida at 7'9"?
No, there's another guy. Yeah, that's a cool video. There's a guy 7'8" who plays for Florida. He's standing next to a guy who's 6'8". And the guy's looking at me. You're tall. You're a tall dude. But all right. But one moment, High Point University, Well, I'll give you one guess where High Point University is, Scott.
North Carolina.
Is it? Yes, High Point, North Carolina. Okay, in the South, we is not too far away. They, beyond all reckoning, in the closing seconds of the game, came back and defeat Wisconsin. They're the 5th seed. High Point was a 12th seed, and as a small school, they have students who are doing the radio broadcast, the official radio broadcast. It goes back to some tiny little
I love that
station. This happens a lot in colleges. You got just 2 students.
It's probably not even broadcast over the airways. It's probably just an internet radio
Probably
station.
so. The call, maybe I'll link this in the podcast notes because it's just awesome. It's gone viral everywhere. These guys are going nuts. They're talking about it's time to put the Cinderella slipper on High Point University because in the first time in school history, they won an NCAA game. And they did it kind of miraculous fashion in the last second and blocked a shot, hit a layup to take the lead with 2 seconds left, blocked the shot, and it was just pandemonium. And it's kind of, to me, what encapsulates what's great about
encapsulates.
What's great about March Madness.
We're not going to allow Candace Owens mispronunciations.
I am not a robot. She might be, but I am not an AI. Okay.
That's going to do it. Good for High Point. These are the people who rock. These are the people who go on over to patreon.com/peachpundit, sign up for one of our tiers, starting at just $5 a month. Adam Pethel, Tony Weston of Friends and Americans for Prosperity, Amy Davis, several people who are anonymous, including one who wants you to learn more about the Alzheimer's Association. Shout out to John Piesel for doing the dance thing for the Alzheimer's Association, by the way. Great video of John out there dancing.
Impressive
awesome.
sideburns, too, I might add.
Oh, yeah. That mustache was something.
What a legend.
Yeah. The legendary John Piesel. Bethany Ballard, Bill Werkheiser, Bo Brandon, Brittany Ellison, Colin Martin, Courtney Cothran, new this week.
Welcome, Courtney.
Daniel Shaver, Elizabeth Clare, Emmanuel Hernandez, Frank Russo, Gabe Hartwick, Jeff Cobble, Greer Howard, Hank Burnham, Harrison Edwards, Jacqueline Harn, Jason Bankston, John Vestal, Jordan Reed, JT Marshburn, Justin Wright, Ken Pullen, Kenyatta Mitchell, Lawton Sack, Mark Pettit, Mike Buchert, Randall Trammell, Reed Powell, Robert Lee and her friends at Lee6 Media, Robert Mabry, Robert Pruitt, Ron Daniels, Ryan Graham, Ryan Purvis, Sam Thomas, Sergio Ortega, Shannon Ferguson, Skylar Akins, Stuart Wilkinson, Terry Fye, and Whitney Griggs. Thank you to every one of the people who rock.
Yes, love you guys.
That is Buzz Brockway. I am Scott Turner. This is Peach Pundit, the podcast. All the music you hear is original by Jason Pye. We'll catch you next week.
Go Jackets.